You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Battista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So, if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your, stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Kalyn Romaine. How to slay the inner game and turn your side hustle into your dream come true.
Ladies, welcome. I'm super excited to have back to the show the one and only Kalyn Romaine. You may have known her previously in another life, Kalyn Wilson. She's just awesome, and I literally wish I lived next door to her so we could be best friends. However, I will be satisfied by our intermittent conversations, which fill me with joy, which I would like to share with you today. So Kalyn is an organizational psychologist. She's an executive coach. She's a former corporate executive. She's cultivated talent management wins at Fortune 100 companies, unicorn tech startups, super influential nonprofits, and the country's largest city government. She works a fully integrated career. She is dedicated to building HR and DEI systems globally and empowering talent to experience their dream careers. I literally get the shivers when I read that. It's so beautiful. And as the founder of Dream Forward Consulting, she values compassion, integrity, and efficiency while prioritizing innovative results that propel her clients forward. And also, she's just like so much fun and has the best personality and will make you laugh. Okay. So you and I mean, for those who don't know, we met in a restaurant in Nashville, Tennessee. I feel like if this were a date, it would be great. It was like, there I was. She walked in her beautiful dress with like her Bloomingdale's shopping bag. It was like Sex in the City. Like she was Carrie. It was so amazing. And I was just like, wow. And then we just started talking and got connected. And so we've had you on the show before. And why I wanted to have you back is because as I sort of transition away from exclusively doing dating coaching into life coaching and helping successful women live an aligned life, you and I were talking as part of some research I did, and a lot has changed for you since we first met. And you really literally took that to heart. You were like, I need to create a life that is aligned with the soul of who I am. So tell us about, because I was also talking to someone today who told me their moment where they were like, why am I still doing this job I don't really love? So what was the catalyst? What was the moment? What were you doing? How are you not aware that you were unhappy, and what made you aware or more aware?
Yeah, I think, first of all, thank you for having me back. I always have so much fun with our conversations, whether they are recorded or not. And just to get to the answer to the question, I don't think it was one big aha moment. It was more so a series of little things. And because I prioritize efficiency so much, if something takes too many steps, I get irritated. Because I'm like, well, that could have only taken 3 steps. Why did I make it take 5? Or I could have done that in 3 months. Why did I take 9 months to do that? And so I've been running my company while having a full-time job the entire time I've been an entrepreneur. So that's headed toward 7 years. And it hit me that, one, I could tell the layoffs were about to happen at the particular job I was at that time. I won't say who.
Yep.
But I was like, oh, okay, because I do this work, organizational development, I said, they about to lay people off.
Right.
And I knew that because I was one of, if not the highest paid, one of the highest paid people in my particular functional area, of course, I would be first on the chopping block. And so there started to be these little weird conversations about performance that weren't coming up before, odd nitpicking and critique. And it's so interesting, Marni, because in earlier phases of my career, those things would break me. I would take it to heart. I would personalize it. I would feel like, oh my goodness, I just have to be better because if I'm not working this job, this is the best thing that can happen.
Right.
And by this time, my company had been doing great for like 2 years. So in a way, having a 9 to 5 was kind of a distraction a little bit.
Right.
I'm gonna get back.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back to that in a second because distractions are a powerful hindrance to an aligned life. But I was like, I don't need this. I'm doing work where I don't have to argue with people about simple solutions. I don't have to have folks questioning my intelligence, my competence. I'm telling CEOs and C-suite executives at major companies things that to somebody else will sound outlandish, and they say, okay, let's do it. Why am I sitting here arguing with y'all about this little petty stuff that I've been knowing how to do for
Right.
more than 10 years? So it was those little things over the course of, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 months. And I was like, I don't need to work here anymore. And so I decided to leave kind of on a whim. The last thing that happened, there was a conference that a senior executive had selected me to attend. And there were some other people who were a higher title level than me. And they kind of had always had like some little, I call it nice nasty. So where they not outright mean, but they're icy a little bit, or again, they find little ways to critique or undermine. So when they heard that I had gotten put in place to not only attend the conference, but lead an activity, which would have been high visibility, they concocted like all these arguments of why I shouldn't go and got my supervisor involved. I mean, it was really silly. And I was in the middle of booking travel, like on the Concur site, about to click book. And I got a call on my phone from my supervisor that said, unfortunately, we just can't let you go right now. There are some priorities you need to be focusing on that we don't think it's in the best interest. This is like a Friday at 4:30.
Oh,
like,
my Lanta.
Girl, when I came back to work, I said, okay, no problem. So I didn't say anything. When I came back to work on Monday, that resignation letter was hot and ready, like Little Caesar's Pizza. I was not playing with the people. Because what they didn't realize is like, and what I had to accept is that for a lot of folks, this is the best thing they could think of. But
right,
I'm having speaking engagements at major conferences. They don't know because I don't always publicize my business, but I'm sitting and being a liaison to places where they may never be able to sit. And what do I look like as a founder and a CEO arguing with people who aren't even at the executive level, period? Like these aren't even directors at this giant. Just to say I work here, I was out of there. And I left just in time because when I left, there was another conference that I chose to go to maybe like a week after my last day. And I definitely was going to go, but I was like, man, do I have enough time off to go? But of course, now I'm not working, so I don't even have to think about it.
Right, yeah.
When I went, it triggered a 3-month process of what I call like my Hansel and Gretel story of getting my company together. So it was the little breadcrumbs leading me on a path. So I would go to one conference, meet somebody. They would say, hey, have you heard of that conference? I'm like, no, I never heard of that. Oh, you should go. Okay, go to that conference. Then I get to meet all of these people. And somebody says, have you heard of this conference? You should go. Okay, boom. And so I ended up going to conferences like almost every week, just traveling around the country back and forth until the end of the year. And it taught me so much. And what it really showed me was that I had neglected so much that was needed to lead my company. I was treated like a side hustle, right? Like a side chick or a mistress.
Right.
And
yep.
The service delivery was tight. My clients were happy, but the administrative part was super funky. I had team members who were barely working and still getting paid. I had business certifications that I hadn't gotten for the business. Personally, I had my certifications and professional together, but the company was behind on things. We had no business development processes or workflows. We had no true sales or marketing strategies. It was like everything was word of mouth, and that's good to a certain point, but that doesn't help you become resilient. And those 3 months showed me how much was lacking in my company. And at that point, I was like, I don't know if I'll end up taking another job again, maybe not. But for the time that I'm not doing double duty, I am going to commit myself to getting my company together. because this is the thing that is representative of my true self. I don't own these other companies that I'm working 9 to 5s for.
Right.
Somebody else does. So I'm, by definition, always going to be limited in what I can do. But I have full control over my company, which is a part of my life, and I'm letting it slip. This isn't the excellence that I know I can do. And so I started getting my life together, which has pretty much been taking me this entire year.
Yeah. Well, I want to highlight a couple of really huge things because they're thematic. And one is that we talk a lot about around here is listening to the voice within, right? Like the intuition. And so for so many people, and you said in the old version of you, you would have heard that intuition, you would have downplayed it, you would have ignored it, you would have had a self-doubt, right? And so this is what happens when you cultivate intuition and you match it with courage, right?
Yes.
Like there's the knowing and then there's the listening to it, right? And then taking action. And what's really cool is, and then we kind of follow the trail, and then you're like, okay, now I'm doing Hansel and Gretel. I'm following breadcrumbs, right? And that's really a lot of intuition. And when you and I were talking offline, you were like this was a big leap to invest in the conferences. You sound so confident now. You're like, yeah, I just left, but like, I know, like based on your career and how much you put into it and the impact that you were making at the places that you were working, like doing that and then taking the leap to really fully commit and follow those breadcrumbs must have taken a lot of courage. So for people who are like hearing a whisper and kind of ignoring it, how did you decide to like get all in, like financially invested, emotionally invested? Like, how did you do it when everything was feeling like, I don't know how this is going to turn out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of in that place where that little nagging voice is there. My revenue this year has been down like 70%, but I've been investing so much time into learning and the development side and making connections and relationship building. And it's a stretch, but I know that that is what is needed for a long-term investment. I'm going to tell a quick anecdotal story. And I was just talking to my aunt about this. So you might hear some thunder in the background. It's a rainy, stormy day in Atlanta. And it's been kind of doing that off and on for the past couple weeks. So I have a few rose bushes outside. I actually have azalea bushes, gardenia bushes, and rose bushes. I had a company plant them last year, I think. And they did a trifling job. So half of them died right away and just never.
Oh, God.
And so the
love that.
gardenia bushes, though, they were doing great last summer. So I'm like, yes, they're going to be amazing. They're going to bloom. And the rose bushes were like, yeah, they're doing okay. They're a little fledgling. Well, this year, the gardenia bushes are looking real scrawny, and they're just now starting to get a couple of leaves. So I'm watering them, putting a little fertilizer. They're not doing anything. But the rose bushes have been booming, all 3 of them. And I remember when the first rose came for the season, it probably had to be like early April. And I was so shocked when I went outside because I was like, oh my God, it's my first rose. And it was beautiful. So I said, wow, maybe my roses are going to do okay. Sure enough, they start blooming. I'm thinking it's going to be the gardenias. I'm overwatering those. No, gardenia is not doing anything. The azaleas are not really doing anything. They hit like a couple buds at first and haven't done anything since. But the roses are so resilient. And so with the rainstorms that have been happening, it's been really windy too. And one particular storm, it blew literally all the roses off. When I say it was like 20 roses per bush, it was gorgeous. So I didn't take a picture that day. I was like, I'm going to go take it tomorrow. It should be fine. It's going to rain, so they'll probably get even fuller. I came out, they were gone. Like they had blown completely away. So I almost cried. I was like, oh my God, did it mess it up? And then the next day, it was super sunny. And so I started to see little buds again. And I was like, what? They're coming back and didn't destroy it? And right then, an aha moment hit me. And this is my answer to your question. Resilience is needed to build courage and to hear your intuition. You cannot give up. You will have moments where it's like you are flying high and you will want to hold on to that emotion, to that thing for so long until it literally is like rotting in your hand. Like how 2-year-olds hold on to Cheetos for like 3 hours. You're like, dude, it's over with. Like, throw the cracker away. You know what I mean? But that's how we do with things. That's how we do with jobs, with relationships, with friendships, with mentors, with sponsors, with 401ks that we won't invest in the right things for it to be meaningful. Like anything we have, we overdo it. And we don't recognize that resilience is allowing something to get beat up so that it can be stronger and grow even stronger. And so in the 2 weeks since then, my rose bushes have bloomed again, even more roses.
Woo!
And then it rains and they go away for a second because the wind is really windy. But really, any gardener will tell you, you need your plants to develop that strength because you can't control the elements. And based on where you live, if you don't get your outdoor plants conditioned to be able to deal with the elements that are natural to your environment, you will never see any growth. They're just a showpiece for a day or two, and you might as well not even plant them because it's not worth the work. So my message to women who are thinking like, how do I keep doing this? You do it one storm at a time, one decision at a time. You keep watering things. You keep fertilizing things. Again, thinking about relationships. You don't, if one mentor fails you, you don't say bump all mentors. You go find another one, right? And build trust and learn maybe better boundaries so that you don't become too vulnerable too early. Maybe it's that you need to find a more senior mentor that won't be intimidated by your success. It could be a number of reasons, but you keep going. You don't get upset. I just put a status up about that today. You know, you don't get upset because one job didn't work out. I know these layoffs are hitting people hard, especially in tech, because those were considered the unicorn jobs. If you could get in there, you were straight, and there's so much pride and status and prestige. Who cares? You don't own these companies, right? You're not the founder of that. Either get up, go to another industry, or go start your own company. But you didn't lose you just lost that job. And so I think we often see it in such a macro longitudinal level that we don't understand that macro longitudinal level is built by micro, day by day, small decisions that we make over time. That's the thing that we lose sight of, the over time part.
I love this because I think about my own evolution just in the last couple of years since I met you when I was first starting out on that RV trip. And I feel like it was like a feedback loop, right? Like I would get intuition and I would act, and then I'd get feedback, and then I'd adjust, and then I'd get bummed out, and then I'd stand up, and then I'd try something else, right? And it was sort of like not resisting the rain and the wind, just being like, this is part of the process. And the more it happened, the more I was like, okay, well, I'm just getting really clear feedback, right? Like, what is it here to show me? What is it telling me? And the thing that I want to like drive this to next, because I think this is kind of where you're going with this idea about resiliency, is like, now you have an identity of resiliency. Like before you had you had the corporate girl and the side hustle girl.
Yes.
Right. And then you're like, no, like that's not aligned. Now my identity is like making this impact, doing my own business, feeling aligned in everything I do. I'm making my own company efficient, right? Like I'm making it all a reflection. And now here you are. And this is the other thing I think is so cool, that you're like, yeah, and you know what? We all love to say, yeah, and then I made $20 million next year. And that's like not how it happens.
No, not at all.
It doesn't, right? But what's cool is, and I think this is what everyone needs to hear, is that you are building the muscle, the new identity of the leader that is running your business, and you're leading yourself, and therefore you lead others by that resiliency. So can you tell me how your identity has changed as you've built these new muscles, as you've grown, as you've learned, as you got feedback from the universe? Like what's the identity of this new Kalyn Romaine?
Absolutely. I am a founder, first and foremost.
Woo!
And standing in that identity as a woman and as a Black woman seems like an anomaly. If you think about it, most women and especially Black women, describe their businesses as, this is my side hustle. Oh, this is my little thing that I'm building. Oh, this is my little company. It doesn't matter how mediocre an idea is. I have never heard any man, and especially not a white man, say, oh, this is a little something I'm doing, a side hustle. They'll say, oh, I founded a company.
So right. That's
Like,
so
they
true,
don't play
girl.
that.
Oh my
The
God.
confidence in
No.
whatever they're doing is like bar none. I've never seen it.
Oh my God.
And I had to dig deep within myself last year and was like, why am I not calling myself a founder? Like, well, who, if I'm not a founder, then who is? Like, who am I thinking of as a founder? It's not just the tech bros. It's not just the people who, build or create some new medical device. If you started a company, you're a founder, period. And I noticed the subtle shift in how I focused on business excellence when I started calling myself a founder, because it really put a different level of accountability on me. Because it's like, okay, if I'm a founder, that means that I need to have an employee handbook, because I'm expecting that I'm going to have employees. If I am a founder, I need to start thinking about financial vehicles related to compensation packages. Am I planning to have equity for folks? Am I planning to do a 401k or something like a SEP IRA to be able to entice talent to come over to me? Like, it made me think of it as a real company and not just something I'm doing. And I think that's so important for us as women, because again, imposter syndrome, microaggressions, constantly feeling like we have to prove ourselves even when we are overly competent, all of that sets up in us a refusal to call a thing a thing. I don't call an apple an orange just because I feel like, well, I don't know, this apple is too pretty, I don't want to call it apple. No, if it's an apple, it's an apple. If it's an orange, it's an orange. So if you started a company, you're a founder, period. I started calling myself an organizational psychologist, also an anomaly for women and for Black women. First of all, I'm in the middle of finishing, or not in the middle, I'm actually toward the end of finishing my PhD. So technically, the official title for an organizational psychologist, or credentials rather, is a PhD, but at the very least, a master's. Marni, I finished my master's in 2018. Why am I not calling myself an organizational psychologist? That's crazy. Like, that's literally what I am and what I do. So I was like, okay, if 1%, I think it's actually less than 1% of all organizational psychologists in the world are Black women, why am I not stepping into an identity that I worked hard as beep, 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 beep to do? You know what I mean? Like, that was not easy work. And so it's little things like that where you will have all the credentials, all the experience, all the know-how, all the connections, all the excitement, and won't call yourself by your name. That would never fly for us. If you would never call me Marni, because everything about me says my name is Kalyn. You're Marni.
Right.
So call yourself by your name. So for the women who are listening, one exercise that you might think about doing now, just as an action item, think carefully about what you call yourself. When someone asks you, what do you do? Do you call yourself what you actually do, or what you've been conditioned to think is the right thing for you to be? Do you actually step into the fullness of your identity that you have trained for, paid to know how to do, worked and did for years? If you don't call yourself that, that is step one to diminishing your own capacity. Because if you're not calling something, you can't be accountable for producing whatever that thing is. So when I started calling myself an organizational psychologist, I was like, oh no, I'm not going to settle for just doing operational level work. I have evolved past that in my career. Organizational psychologists are not, counting up timesheets. They are not, pressing the button to enter a new hire into the system. That is worthy work. I've done it before. It's important work. It's necessary. But that is not the level that I'm at in my career. Organizational psychologists develop theory and frameworks. They build strategy and visioning. They are responsible for building systems and focusing on design thinking for crafting and sharpening and making organizations more powerful. That's what I do, because that's who I am. I've trained to do that, and I've been doing it. So any job, any relationship, any client, any opportunity that comes that is forcing me to go below who I am, I either don't accept it or I scale my staff to have people who can focus more on the operational work so I can stay in my strategic mindset, because that's the thing that nobody else can do like me, because I know, because I've done it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's important.
Well, it's funny because I work with so many in this new thing that I'm doing in high performance coaching, which is what I am.
Yes.
So many women are afraid to delegate non-service delivery items, right? Or they're like, oh, I need to change this because if I do that, then maybe this client will want to work with me. Or I'm afraid to ask for this new level of my new fee because of X, Y, and Z, right? And this is so powerful what you're saying, because I always say, like, every moment gives you an opportunity in that moment to decide who you want to be.
Absolutely.
Right. And how you define yourself impacts what you do and how you do it. So moment by moment, like what I hear you saying is you have to fully like stand in all your glory, right? Of like that unique genius that is you, the training that you have, the qualifications that you have, the gifts that you have. And that as women of all colors, like we shouldn't shy away from it, because it is diminishing and it's bullshit.
Yes. And it's silly too, because what we don't realize is that it makes people respect us less. Let me tell you something, Marty.
Yeah.
So my industries in particular, and you know this as a coach too, they are overrun with people, way oversaturated.
Yes.
Many folks don't have the credentials, the experience. You go wake up tomorrow and say, I'm an executive coach. Technically, nobody can tell you no, right? Yeah. And so when you go, that's why going to the conferences was so important to me, because I got to see what it was like from the other side. I was used to going to conferences and being on the side of the corporate company. So when I go to a conference, I'm representing, these high power companies that people are trying to impress. So I didn't really have this like grassroots, boots on the ground perspective of what it's like to be on the other side. So I would go up and tell people, oh, I'm a coach. Oh, we just do some consulting. And they'll be like, oh, okay, well, just, leave your car right here. And I could see, and I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on. I didn't fly all the way.
Rewind.
Yeah, I'm like, skirt. It's like the record scratched. And I was like, no. I didn't fly all the way from where I flew from to be turned down. So I spun the block and made a U-turn and came right back to those same companies and was like, hi, I'm an organizational psychologist and executive coach. I used to work at and I've been doing this for 15 years. I'd love to partner with you to do boop, boop, boop. And then the response was totally different. Then it was, oh, wait, what's the name of your company again? Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, let's talk. Make sure you email me. Oh, are you coming to such and such one-on-one sessions? Are you coming to this private dinner that's happening with the conference? No, I hadn't heard of it. Okay, we'll come. Here's an invite. Totally different conversation, because, again, when you diminish who you are, people see you as common. And we are conditioned in society to not respect common things. Well, respect.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, your whole vibe is of that fear and that lack. And it gets transmitted, right? And so then you do sort of like hide, and there's so many people that hide. Okay, the last thing, we could obviously talk for hours, but the last thing I want to talk about is that you that you mentioned, because it's so powerful, are the distractions that keep us from living an aligned life.
Exactly.
And I've been talking about this a lot lately. I call them the weapons of mass distraction.
Yeah.
Right. And they can come in the form of, taking care of other people, not feeling like we're enough, waiting for a certain number in the bank, waiting for our kids to get a certain age, waiting for this person to leave. You're always waiting, and we keep moving the goalposts like constantly, like down the field, so that we always have a reason. And so I just would love for you to share about what it's been like what are the scary parts of not having any distractions?
Yeah.
And how do you stay focused, and what advice do you give to your clients to not hide? Because distractions are just a way to hide.
Yeah, so it's funny because accountability has come up a couple of times in this conversation, and accountability is one of the number one things. First of all, understanding distractions come as a reflection of your shadow side. So some
Yeah.
things are not a distraction for me. I've never been a smoker, for example. Never smoked anything, never really liked the smell of smoke, grew up with family members smoking, hated it then, always hated it now. So if somebody came up to me and said, "Oh my God, let's smoke, da da da," I don't care if it was a cigarette all the way up to, illegal substances. I'll be like, no, that's not something that I've ever been interested in. But if you came up to me and said, "Oh my God, Kalyn, I just need some help. I'm just trying so hard. Can you just sit with me for a few hours over the next couple of weeks and help me figure out this business idea?" The people please inside of me, the inner child that grew up with narcissistic parents and learned as a survival technique to just like diminish my own needs and my own priorities just to satisfy others, that's a distraction for me. That's going to activate something at a deep, almost like primal level.
Yes.
Or distractions are a reflection of you. If you are distracted by always finding a boyfriend or a partner or even your spouse's moods that always seem to throw you off of pursuing your own career goals, guess what? That is a reflection of you. It's more about you than them because it's always going to be somebody. It's always going to be a new guy. It's always going to be a new mood that your spouse is in. It doesn't matter. It's really you. If you are the person who says, your kids are 5 years old and 8 years old, and you say, "Well, I'm going to wait till they graduate high school to start a business." Really? 10 whole years you're going to wait? That is a reflection of you. And it could be because you grew up seeing your mom self-sacrifice so much and really self-immolate to keep other people warm. So in your mind, you think that that's the perfect picture of motherhood. Or maybe it's the opposite, that your mother was so selfish and she never prioritized you, and there was so much emotional neglect or physical neglect that you're like, "I'm never going to do that to my kids." And so as a result, you haven't learned to balance. You're not walking in an aligned state. So you're making choices that are so extreme that you're really hurting yourself and your kids. Because
Oh my God, this is amazing. I'm sorry. I'm just like, I'm on video going, woo, woo. Okay, keep going.
no, it's crazy because, and I say this a lot to moms because a lot of people think, well, you've
Yes.
never been a mom, you couldn't understand, but all of us have been kids. And so we've all had an interesting perspective to watch adults either get it right or totally F it up. I
Right.
watched my mother live a deeply unfulfilling, mediocre life. And I knew, all of us knew, me and my brother, and even her siblings watching her knew that she was unhappy, unfulfilled, that she wasn't maximizing her potential. And little did she know, we never cared as kids as much about why doesn't she have gobs of money or whatever. That wasn't as important as the fact that we were like, I really wish our mother was happy. Like, why doesn't our mother
Right.
smile? We would see other moms and they had, nice clothes that they would wear, or you could tell that they were like walking in purpose, really walking in purpose. And I used to wonder, wow, why can't my mom be like that? They had such a sense of life, like what is it, the joie de
Joie de vivre.
exactly. And so I was like, man, I wish my mom had that. And it wasn't that I wanted her to beat other people. I just wanted her to find her thing. What we don't realize for the folks here who are parents is that how you choose to live a full, complete life gives your children a preview of what's possible for them. When your kids see you struggle to build a business from the ground up, but you go at it every day, and when they go to sleep and you tuck them in, they could still see the light, right, creeping from underneath your door because you're working on your capability statement or your website. That does something to them because that lets them know, when I'm fighting through my algebra homework, I could do this. I just got to put a little bit more oomph into it because my mom is doing that, right? When you see people where the whole family is sitting at the kitchen table working on something, when you see the kids who are able to attend their parents' college graduation, like we see the stories every, April, May, June of the mother who went back to law school and finally finished, the mother who got pregnant in high school and dropped out, so she goes back and gets her GED, the mother who founds the company. Who is it? The woman who founded Bumble after all of that mess happened at Tinder.
Yeah.
Now it's $1 billion company, and she was holding her baby as she rang the bell at the stock exchange. Like, we see these things, but as women, we condition ourselves to think it's either or and not both and. And again, I think for people who are parents in particular, I just want you to know, again, as the person who was the child, one of the most important gifts that you can give your children is to live a fulfilled life that they get to see and be a part of. That sets adults up to know, oh, I can do that too. More than me watching, Sheryl Sandberg or Oprah Winfrey. That's not my family. That's not my blood. I didn't come from them. When I get to watch, like, for example, I'm watching my aunts now, they're all moving toward retirement. And so one of my aunties, she has a new boo, and she goes on all of these fabulous trips all over the world. And, she just chilling. Every time I talk to her, she's going to Vietnam or South Africa and this. And I'm like, ooh, if I remember when my aunt was my age and she was going to work every day as a school social worker and grinding it out and saving her money and doing this, and she would still go on trips and do stuff, but she was very disciplined and consistent. So now that I'm seeing her get the fruit of that consistency when she was my age, I'm like, oh, when I get to the age she's at now, if I put the work in, I can be my auntie. I know for a fact that's attainable, even more so than watching other entrepreneurs, because she's a part of me. Her blood is literally running through me. We got the same DNA, right? And so you give your kids, your family, you give them a preview of what's possible for them because they see you and they're a part of you. So I know that's very specific to like a target group of people. Sorry.
No, but it's
no,
I mean, it's not. I think it's so true. And what's interesting is you can apply that to, like, I hear women talking about this when they're talking about taking care of their elderly parents, right? Like, I have to wait until to do this, right? Or I have to wait until my partner is good in his XYZ until I do my ABC, right? And so when you said, like, we'll always find something, smart women always find a reason to, and they can always find a reason not to. It's where do you want to put that damn energy? And it's funny, like, I got divorced, and then I went back to school. I got a master's because I really wanted to get a master's in education, and I was one of those moms with the kids that came to the graduation. And now I see, because my kids are all in their 20s and doing their own thing. That when they say to me, even when my business was like, I was blowing it up, right, in the last like 6 months, trying to realign, right, and they were like, you keep doing you. Like, every time we see you aligning to you, we see you change, and we see you grow, we see you be courageous, and that gives my daughter the opportunity to show up at her corporate job and set her own boundary or do the own thing, right? And so I just love this message. It's like, there are people who need you to believe in yourself and keep that aligned journey focused. And so, girl, I just literally love you. I think I'm going to come to Atlanta just to see you, but
because it's so important. I think, and I love that you mentioned about, even caring for other loved ones, because that's something that's top of mind for me. Of course, in your head, you're always a little kid to the people who are older than you. And it just hit me like, no, ma'am, you're the adult. And low key, your aunts, whether it's because your aunts and uncles, whether it's because of health issues or just age, I started checking in with them like, hey, what is your care plan? Do you have da-da-da? And I was like, oh, am I having to parent them? Like, what's going on? But I like that because their responsibility as a kid to check in on me planted a seed to be careful with them at a time when they will increasingly need me to be more aware. And when I say careful, literally full of care. They have modeled things to me. And that's really what it is. How do you model to the people who are either in your circle of influence currently or who will be, how to treat and handle folks who they care about, whether that's you or other people? I model that. Like, I hit them up, when was it? Probably like a month ago. And I was like, hey, what's y'all love language? Because I realized, I love y'all in the way that I feel comfortable, but that might not be the way you receive love. So I can't make an assumption about that. So I was like, hey, you don't have to answer right away. If you know it, let me know. Here are the 5. And if you want to take the quiz, I sent the link. It's like in a group text.
Right.
Let me know. So they all ended up responding. A couple of them responded late. So I called because I'm like, no, I really want to know. And so they were like, well, I think it's such and such. I think it's this. I don't know. I'm going to think about it and get back to you, which spurred a conversation where I said, well, what is the best way you like to give love? Because then I realized, I'm like, well, that's how they receive, but maybe they like to give love in a certain way. And sometimes when we don't think people care about us, it's really that they like to give love in a way that's different than we like to receive. So I was so surprised by their answers. And so we were talking about that. I said, okay, this is good to know. So now I can be intentional with how I care about you. Again, I want to model to you what it looks like to care, because I care about you and I care about our relationship. That doesn't cost money. That doesn't really take a whole lot of time, but it is the seeds. When we talk about growing things, that's resilience too. Information powers resilience. When you know things, you've empowered yourself to know stuff, you can make better decisions. You can protect things. You can invest the right way, whether that's with people relationships, with your money, with your time, with your career, with anything. And a lot of us are operating from a deeper place of ignorance than we want to admit, because we don't ask ourselves the right questions. We don't ask questions of other people. We don't get the right information. We don't make the right connections and synthesize information appropriately. And so we just winging it when we don't have to. When we don't have to.
I love that. We don't have to. There's so, oh my God, you were amazing. I literally, like, I'm an interview every 6 months because you're going to tell us some all you know.
Yeah. You know, my life probably going to be totally different, girl. Exactly.
I know. And that's why I'm just so excited for you, and ever so grateful for the moment the universe brought us together in that little restaurant in Nashville. Thank you. I can already think of, like, when I'm doing an interview on this show and I start to think of, like, all my clients and people that I'm like, they need to listen to this. They need to listen to this.
Yeah.
I know it's a really juicy one. So thank you for, you're officially my first podcast guest as I've come out to the world, shifting my identity from just a dating coach to, So thank you. So I'm just super excited. We always talked about broader issues, but now we really get to dive more deeply into it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, make sure you check out the show notes to find out more about Kalyn Romaine. I know you also have, like you said, you're opening a catering company. Is there anything else we need to look out for, like with your brand, your name?
You know what? Honestly, for a second, Marni, I want to take a step back for me because I feel like I need to share this with you. I want to affirm the journey that your company has been on, because the time that you spent as a dating coach, whether you realize it or not, was the opportunity to break up what we call, in my faith, it's like fallow ground, like very hard, dry soil. And for so many women, our love lives are the thing that keeps us humble, right? It's the thing that, like, for a lot of us, it's hard to get right as we get more successful, as we achieve these other goals. That's always hanging in the balance, and especially with how toxic the climate has become now with dating.
Yeah.
And so as much as you pivot, again, I just want to affirm how important it was that you took that journey to let women know that it is okay to want love and need love and want to have fulfillment in that part of their lives, as well as these other parts that seem a whole lot easier to get, the success and hit the goals. You have no idea how many lives you have changed, right? Through helping people see that part of themselves. That's a part of living a full, aligned life too. So yes, this journey is very important. The pivot is not as sharp of a turn as you think. It's really just leveling up and adding new layers. And so yes, I just needed to say that.
I love that. Well, that's really the truth, right? And I thank you for saying that, because really in the end, and this is why I did this, is because in the end, when people came to me for love, right, that ground that we had to that was really the ground of, like, being. That was the ground of self-worth, of self-love, of, like, opening your heart, of healing your past, right? And creating love from that place, just like we create everything. And so I love that you've said that, because the truth is I'm not really doing anything different. I'm just calling myself something different. And it is true. And it does take a lot of courage to, for women to say, when you said, like, to say that you want love, and so we'll still be here for that, ladies. Don't you worry. So thank you for saying that. I love you. You're amazing. You're amazing. Ladies, make sure you check out more about Kalyn Romaine in the show notes. She is one to watch. So excited that we are friends and connections. And ladies, whatever you do, I mean, damn, share this with a friend. To your sister who's like saying she can't like do anything but change diapers for the next 15 years. Send her this episode. Make sure you subscribe. And of course, you can always follow us on Instagram at Marni Battista _, TikTok Marni Battista, and subscribe. And whatever you do, don't forget to always life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Battista, and let's talk soon.